Today I'm going to install a set of replacement shocks. This is a 2003 Honda Accord model. We're going with the Gabriel Ultras. These are from AutoZone. They have a lifetime warranty, and they're just an OEM replacement shock. Your first step, go ahead and remove this 14mm bolt. This connects the lower fork to the shock and the spring. Next, at the bottom of the fork, remove this 17mm bolt. On the reverse side of this, it's a 17mm nut. Get the lower fork removed. You can leave it just sitting here. There's no reason to remove it completely off the car. We just need it off the shock so we can get the shock dropped. And to get the shock dropped completely, remove the 3 14mm nuts and also remove these 2 12mm nuts. These are all attached to the top of the top hat. Now you're going to need a spring compressor tool to get these shocks off of the springs off of the old shocks. Okay, you need to get this nut off the top of the shock. If you have an Allen wrench or a little hex head wrench, the socket, I'm sorry, you can use that on there with your 14. Looks like the top hat was just, the rubber was stuck to the top of the spring. That's what was holding it on there. But now you got your spring off. There's your spring. There's the shock. Just need to take off. I don't know if the new shocks came with all this hardware. I'll check that I'm going to reuse it. If not, I'm going to reuse this. But when you're pulling it apart, I already know the orientation of everything. Make sure you know where all those little pieces go. Now here's the new one versus the old. The old one, it was the original Honda shock. These have 147,000 miles on them, and the car just doesn't handle the same as it used to. It's a real loose, bumps a lot, and they just don't respond, not as responsive anymore. They still have pressure when I squeeze it down and let them come up. So they still work, but they just don't seem to work as well, and I've noticed that the ride quality is just not the same. And the hardware that it came with, the new one, came with this large washer, which is, it's a replacement for that. That washer goes right here. I like the OEM Honda one, so I will be reusing that. I will use the nut on top. This is a nylock nut, so it has the nylon on the top, and it essentially locks it into place once you tighten it down. Granted, the ones on top of it, it has the nylock too, but it's just worn out, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and use the new one. This piece, you need to remove it. This is just holding the piston down into its spot, so it doesn't take any damage during shipping or packaging in comparison to the two. See how slow that one rebounds? So that's the reason why we're getting a little bit of floating and just a harsher ride quality. This is the rear, comes straight up, lines up with the rear on the top hat. So I have it in place. Get your washer on, get your nylock. You need to remove this 17, the bottom of the shock. Now to get to the top of the shock tower, all you need to do is remove this little black piece. I already removed mine. Just kind of get your hand underneath and pop it up, and I'll show you underneath. There's just these little clips that pop it into place. That's all that hold it, and then there you go. You got the top of the shock tower. 14mm bolt. It connects right here you'll see it on the back side of where the bolt comes through for the shock. Once I pull that off, the shock, it gives you room here for the sway bar end link and just to pull this bracket away. The shock dropped down itself. Give me more room. Get this pulled out. Okay, I'm having problems getting the shock out. So I'm gonna disconnect the sway bar so that way I can get this end link free. Hopefully give me enough room to slide the bottom end of the shock up and tip the front of it out. Okay, after I had the end link free, yeah, it gave me a lot more room. Move this bracket around, slide the shock down. There we go. Okay. So I just had to do that bracket and the bracket that connects to it as well. That's what allowed me to get the shock out completely. A little tricky with all these upper bars here and then the lower control arm and everything, but it's not too difficult. Be a lot faster when I do the passenger side. I am also learning how to do this at the same time I make this video. Now same thing applies. Go ahead and get your spring compressors on here. Now pay attention to the orientation of the top hat as well. And once you get it removed, get your top hat off, the washer for the dust cover, and let's slide the spring assembly out completely. You're going to need to get off this washer and then replace these parts onto your new assembly. The bump stop, the washer, that one's garbage, and let's get this one put on already. Get the spring correct orientation, put that washer back on top, and your top hat. Remember what I said in relation to the top hat? Now it can go either way. There is no front or back. So as long as you have it correct, lining up with being parallel with those two, you're good to go. Yep, put it in there, slide it around, slide it up. There you go. I'm gonna get the top nuts put on. And after you have your shocks installed, top hat's tightened down, you're gonna need to tighten up the top nut. That'll hold it in place, then I can start reassembling back all of the bottom pieces, and essentially that's it. Finished up the complete shock replacement for this 2003 Honda Accord. Thank you for watching. If you need any help or have any questions, please leave me a comment in the comment section and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible.